All right, Sully, how do you really feel? What's your real opinion? All right, we gonna we're gonna get into this in about 30 seconds. Good morning, everybody. As y'all are coming in, we're gonna get started in again about 30 seconds. I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna give you a plan. Okay, since the 2024 election is coming up, and we are under 2 weeks now. There's the under 2 week countdown. I'm gonna give you all a plan for who to vote for, and I'm gonna tell you why to vote for. I'm gonna tell you why you're gonna vote for who I'm gonna tell you to vote for. But I gotta lay it all out. I gotta give you the full context. As if you saw my post earlier that I posted this morning on social media, is that you got to give people the full context. You can't just give them the answer or even the fact, quote unquote. You got to give people the full context. I'm gonna give you the full context here today. I'm gonna give you an answer, and I'm gonna tell you why the answer is the answer. That's what I'm going to explain here today. Hope everybody's having a great day, week, month, year, etc., whenever or wherever you are consuming this. So first of all, this is the first thing you need to understand. The baseline of this is I am not a member of any political party. I have no political leanings. I am not paid by any political campaign. And if I am, please show me the money or tell me where the money is at, because I don't know about it. I don't have access to it. So I don't work for any political party and never will. I'm an independent citizen with an independent opinion and some principles and some solid critical reasoning with which to back up the positions that I share. All right, that's who I am, just so everybody understands. Thank you, MB Craig 88, for helping me hit the live goal. I didn't even get to my point yet, Craig. I don't know. You might not like what I said, but I'm assuming you're gonna like it anyway. So thank you, MB Craig, for over on TikTok. And by the way, I'm live in like 7 different places right now. So sometimes I'm referring to things that y'all don't see, whichever platform you're on. And here's the other thing. Here's what I'll tell everybody. I believe that people get way too emotionally engaged into these political things. And I'm going to explain why I believe people get too emotionally engaged as I get into my points here today. While I do have opinions, I got plenty of opinions on a lot of things, social issues, politics, etc. I'm not emotionally engaged. I'm logically engaged. I'm critical thinker level engaged, meaning I have thoughts about it. I have opinions. I got things that I'm going to say, but I'm not emotionally engaged, meaning whoever wins in 2 weeks, if we even know the answer, hopefully we know the answer that night, but whoever wins, I'm not going to be super happy. I'm not going to be throwing a party because that person won. And if whoever wins the other side, I'm not going to be despondent and angry or protesting because the other person won, unlike what we have seen in some previous election cycles. And I'm talking to both sides right now when I'm making this point. So what I'm going to share here today is, again, who to vote for and why. And this is going to make sense to everybody. And it should, if you are a critical thinker and you're a logical, reasonable person, you will understand the logic behind all of this, as long as you can keep your emotions checked at the door and think about what I'm going to share here today logically. Okay, so let me introduce myself for those of you who may be unfamiliar. Even if you know who I am, let me tell you again, just in case you forgot since yesterday. My name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year professional athlete. I'm author of 35 books. I've done 4 TEDx talks. I created this brand called Work on Your Game. Our job over here is to help you perform, do it consistently, and produce results. That's it. Perform, do it consistently, produce results. We got a lot of different ways that we go about making that happen, but the end game, the main goal, performance, consistency, results. Okay. And what I'm going to talk about here today is going to be directed towards that. So let's get to it. Topic here today, again, is, let me see, over on TikTok. And by the way, if you're on TikTok, if you leave a comment while I'm talking, one of the challenges is that there are so many comments coming through that they cut it off. So I'm not going to be able to scroll back through. So you might want to hold your comments to the end or your questions to the end. If you actually want me to address it, you might want to hold it to the end. But if you're commenting for other people to see it, then go ahead and do what you want to do. So point number 1, as I just explained in the introduction, your preferred candidate might not win. Everybody understands that. So if you're voting for Harris, she might lose. And if you're voting for Trump, he might lose. All right. Your preferred candidate may not win, which means if your preferred candidate doesn't win, the rights that you are voting for, the laws that you think you're voting for, the taxes that you're voting for, and the policies that you're voting for may not happen. You may get the exact opposite of what you are voting for and what you prefer. So my question to you is, if that happens, what will you do? That's an open question. And any of you can leave a comment and let me know, what will you do? I'm not going to address all the comments right now. I'll address all the comments at the end. But what are you going to do? If your preferred candidate doesn't win, and that means all the policies, the laws, the rules, whatever you think one candidate is going to do and other candidate's not going to do, etc., you may get the exact opposite of what you're voting for. My question is, what are you going to do? What's your recourse in that case? What is your recourse if you're voting for the Democrat and the Republican wins? What's your recourse if you're voting for the Republican and the Democrat wins? All right, what will you do in this situation? This is an important question that you all should answer, and you should have an answer for this question because it might happen. The thing about the democratic process that we have for elections is that about 150, I believe in the last elections, around 150, 160 million people participated in the process, and each of us is only one person. So you don't really control who's actually going to win this election. You know that you don't control it. Your vote does count because, of course, based in each state, depending on what state you live in, your state may be solidly red or solidly blue, as they say, but you never know. Things can flip, things can change. Overall, though, being that we're in a democratic process, the majority rules, at least when it comes to the electoral votes, not necessarily the popular vote, which we all know Trump didn't win the popular vote in 2016, but he won the election. And then in 2020, who the hell knows what the hell happened? But they say Biden got the most votes of anyone ever in history. Who knows? All right, but y'all get the point. We don't control the outcome. So what are you going to do? Are you going to curl up in a ball and die if your preferred candidate does not win? Does anybody know? What are you going to do? Your preferred candidate doesn't win. What are you going to do? I'm asking this question because I'm waiting for someone to come up with an answer. All right, so he said, hopefully it's a fair election. Well, hopefully it is. Yes, we're always voting for that. We're always hoping for that. So let me move on to point number 2 and tell you the answer to the question. All right, who should you actually vote for in the 2024 election? Here's who you're going to vote for. You're going to vote for yourself. You're going to vote for yourself. All right, this is the answer that I've been giving people. I talked about why Kamala will win. I did a whole live on that. I did a whole live on why Trump will win. I did a whole live on is Kamala actually black yesterday. And I'm doing this live right here. And every time somebody asks me who you going to vote for, Dre, my answer has been this. The same answer I'm giving you. You need to vote for yourself. And I'm going to spend the rest of this time explaining to you what I mean when I say you need to vote for yourself. It doesn't mean you don't cast a ballot for whatever candidate you want. You can write yourself in on the ballot. That's not what I mean. Don't take this literally. If you want to write yourself in, go ahead and do it. Your vote, your choice. What I mean when I say voting for yourself is what I'm going to spend the rest of our time here today explaining. This means, here's what it means when I say vote for yourself. Okay. This means taking full ownership and full responsibility over your situation. And you know what that does? Know what happens when you take full ownership and full responsibility over a circumstance? You get power. Now, how many of you would like to have more power over your life, over your situation, over your circumstance than any politician? I don't care if the politician is Trump. I don't care if the politician is Kamala, or if it's Biden or Obama or Clinton or whoever else you like. Whichever ones may come in the future, if you want to have more power over your circumstance than the government or any politician has, the most important thing you must do is not vote. It is not stump for a candidate. It is not leave comments on a live stream. Doesn't mean you can't do those things if you want to do them. If you want to go knock on doors and put signs in your front yard and all that, if you want to do that, go ahead and do it. The point, though, if you want to have more power over your own life and your own situation and what happens in your life for you, your family, your community, and your kids, the most important thing you need to do is take full ownership and responsibility over your situation such that nothing that the government and anyone involved in the government does can disturb what you're looking to do. That's the most important thing you need to do. That's what I mean when I say voting for yourself. So some of you who came in here thought I was really going to talk politics. I am, but I'm not. What I'm really talking about here is you taking personal ownership and responsibility over your situation. So those of you who are not familiar with me, maybe you just came across me when you heard me talking about the candidates and voting and all of that stuff. Understand the bottom line of what we do, bottom line of what we focus on professionally and business wise. What I focus on is this point right here. And what I tell people who I work with when I'm talking to an athlete, an entrepreneur, a person working in the corporate space, or a person just trying to figure out what to do, and they don't even know what they're doing, is that we start in the mirror and we end in the mirror. Everybody knows what a mirror is, right? All right, the thing that you look at in the bathroom to make sure that your makeup is on the right way, or that your hair is cut the right way, or that your shaving is done well. Everybody knows what a mirror is, right? Okay, so starting in the mirror and ending in the mirror, what does that mean? That means any situation that you get into, any circumstance that you're in that you would like to alter, change, enhance, or have an effect on any way, shape, or form, we start by looking in the mirror. What that means is, How did I end up in this circumstance? What did I do, or what did I not do? What did I allow, or what did I overlook? What did I not pay attention to? What did I pretend to not notice, etc., that led me to being in the circumstance that I'm in now? That's the first question that you have to ask yourself. How did we get here? And when I say we, I mean you talking to yourself. I don't mean the group. I mean you talking to yourself. How did I get into this circumstance that I'm in? Even if, let me be clear, even if the circumstance is not fully your fault, it is still your responsibility. I'm taking a pause there because I want to make sure that point sank in. Even if the circumstance is not fully your fault, it is still your responsibility. For example, you are not at fault for where you were born. So if you live in Boston right now, you didn't choose to live in Boston. Your parents chose to live in Boston. You were born in Boston, and here you are now. You're in Boston. All right, is that your fault? No, but is it your responsibility? Yes. So if you don't like Boston and you want to live in Los Angeles, well, you got to do something about the fact that you're in Boston, even though it's not your fault. It's your responsibility. How do I get from Boston to LA? All right, how do I do that? How do I change that situation? As soon as you take ownership over a situation, ladies and gentlemen, now you have power to do something about it. Anything you refuse to take ownership of and responsibility for, you have no power to alter. Let me take a sip of water because I want that point to sink in, and I'm going to say it again. Anything that you do not assume full ownership over and full responsibility for, you have no power to alter. Now, here's the thing about this topic, and I understand this before I even get into it, is that, see, if I get on here and I talk about here's why you should pick Kamala, or here's why you should pick Trump, or here's why Kamala's terrible, or here's why Trump's terrible, a lot more people will be a lot more engaged and interested and entertained in hearing me talk about that. And as opposed to what I'm talking about right now, is I just gave you the thesis of what I'm going to talk about here today, of you taking full ownership. Why? Because it'd be 10 times more people listening to me right now if I was to say that. And let me tell you why that is. Most people do not want to take full ownership and full responsibility over their situation. This is the reason why many people get so excited and engaged when it comes to talking about politics, because you know what talking about politics does? It gives all of us an excuse to take all the blame and all the responsibility for our circumstance, or what we think our future circumstance will be, and we can put it on him or her instead of putting it on the person in the mirror. So this is what I mean when I say we start in the mirror. We start in the mirror by looking at ourselves and asking ourselves, how did this situation occur? And again, and you need to basically come up with a list. What are all the things that I did or did not do that led to this circumstance being the circumstance? What does that do? First of all, it gives you full accountability. It gives you full responsibility. It gives you full ownership. And all of those things combined equal power. So you know how they have the chemical formula for water is hydrogen and oxygen, H2O, 2 units of hydrogen, 1 unit of oxygen, you get water. All right, so the chemical formula for power is accountability, responsibility, ownership equals power. Everybody got it? Thank you for that superpower badge, Cindy Branham Hill. Thank you. Appreciate that. So if you want to have more power over your life, and power simply means influence, folks, that's what power is. My favorite book is called The 48 Laws of Power, written by a guy named Robert Greene. And power is simply about having influence and control over circumstance. And the more influence and control you want over a circumstance is a simple way to get more power. Just take more responsibility. The challenge with this is most people don't want responsibility, because if you have responsibility for something, if it goes wrong, that's on you too. See, it's on you if it goes well, and it's also on you if it fails. Most people want all the power, all the accountability, and all the attention when everything's working, but they don't want the power, accountability, and attention when things go south. And this is the reason why, if you want to step into a position of power, it's relatively easy because you have so little competition. Not many people want to step into a position of being in power simply because they don't want to deal with the possible downsides of it. Thank you, everybody who's posting those, sending me the gifts on TikTok. I can't see them all while I'm talking, but I appreciate it. Annabis C7 got the #2 gifted badge. Shout out to you. So this is what I mean by starting in the mirror. Now let's get to the other part, which is ending in the mirror. Ending in the mirror is, for example, let's say I'll give you an example of something that actually happened. One of my coaching clients, he was a guy running his own business, and he had an office with maybe 4 people working. So it's him and 3 other people working for him, 3 or 4 other people working for him. And one day we're having a coaching call, and he's telling me how one of his staff members is not really doing their job as well as they need to do their job. And he wanted to get rid of them, but based on the structure and the way his business was set up, he couldn't just fire this person. They had to kind of leave on their own volition. And he wanted them to leave on their own volition because they weren't really going all the way at the job. And he couldn't make them leave. And his default way of dealing with that was he was just going to basically berate them and beat them down and hopefully intimidate them into quitting the job because he couldn't actually fire them. He came to me and said, "This is what I'm about to do, Dre. What do you think about that?" I told him we can't do it that way. I said, "We can't do it that way. Here's the way we are going to do it." I said, help them understand that you're on the same side of the table as them and you want to level with them and get them to see that you actually give a damn about their circumstance and their situation. He told me a little bit more about who they were and why they were doing what they were doing and why they might be willing to quit the job, but he couldn't force them to do so. And I kind of helped him through soft skills. I did a whole live on soft skills maybe a month or so ago on these platforms. And soft skills are just your things that you can do that are not tangible. You can't hold them in your hands. You can't count them. Thank you for the training, whoever sent that, Cindy. Thank you. And I helped him understand that if he can relate to her and get on the same side of the table as her, metaphorically speaking, she will see him as an ally rather than as an enemy. And then she might walk away from the job on her own volition because she knows she's not giving her best effort to the job. He knew that and she knew it, but she was holding on to it because she was just collecting the check. And he did what I told him to do. And then eventually, like within 3 weeks, the woman quit the job. And then he was able to replace this woman with someone who actually wanted to go hard and was really ambitious in the job. And he was very happy with the whole situation. Now, I'm telling you all that to explain to you this. Even though we went through all of that and the whole circumstance that I was helping my client with was about his staff and someone on his staff not doing what they needed to do, we still had to come back to the person in the mirror, because come back to the person in the mirror means, well, first of all, how did this person get hired in the first place? Why'd you hire this person in the first place? And what changed with them or between you and them that led them to not being the type of person you thought they were when you hired them in the first place? That's personal accountability. Any of you who runs a business and you have people working for you, you have someone working for you who's not doing their job. The first question you need to ask yourself is, how the hell did they get hired in the first place? How did they get hired in the first place? Did they just dazzle you in a job interview? I was talking to someone else yesterday. They run a training company and an insurance business. And the woman was saying to me, again, another client of mine, and she was explaining to me that she just had to fire somebody from their team because the person sounded great in the job interview, but then when it was time for them to actually do the job, they sucked. And that can happen. These days, it's actually very easy to ace a job interview these days and not actually be good. It's only when you get out there, on the field, so to speak, that we can find out somebody can't play. Same way someone can look good. Any of you who know sports, you can go into a combine or do drills and you look great doing drills. But then when it comes to time to actually get in the game and do stuff, you're not nearly as good as you looked in the drills. That's kind of how it happens. In sports, they say that people who look good in warm-ups, but they're not actually good in the game. There's some people who are both and there's some people who are not. So we had to ask ourselves, okay, what did I miss? What did I miss that led to this person fooling me in the interview process so they got the job, but then when they got into the job, they turned out to actually suck? What did I miss? All right, how can I have this not happen to me again? And again, maybe sometimes the answer is you may not come up with too much. Maybe sometimes you just got to put people on the field and find out, and you got to cut your losses, because hiring someone and then firing them is a time investment. Now you got to go find another person to replace that person. Sometimes you got to cut your losses and just say, well, they fooled me. I don't know if I did anything wrong here. They just fooled me. The point is taking ownership. It's taking ownership and taking accountability instead of trashing the staff member. I mean, the staff member is so terrible. They didn't do the job well. I had to fire them. That's true. But at the same time, if you put all the responsibility on them, well, you have no power to do anything different in the future. This is what I mean by ending in the mirror. So even though the issue has something that is not of your doing, you didn't cause the issue. You are not the reason for the issue. And you're not the one who is perpetuating the issue. You're the one in charge of whatever led to the issue. Therefore, we still got to come back to the person in the mirror and say, all right, debriefing here, how can we make sure this doesn't happen again? And that's ownership. And again, more ownership equals more power. It's like if you own a house versus renting a house. If you own the house, anything that happens in the house, you can do whatever you want to do. You can change it, alter it, paint the walls, install a pool, do the landscaping however you want. You can tear up the kitchen and rebuild a new kitchen because you own it. Now, you can do whatever you want to it because you own it. It's yours. But if you're renting a house, you can't do all that stuff. I mean, you can do it, but you got to undo it. All right. So when you rent a place and you say to whoever owns it, hey, can I paint the walls here? They say, yeah, you can paint the wall. But when you move out, you got to paint it back how it was when you first got it. All right. So you can't do everything you want to do when you rent. But when you take ownership, you can do whatever you want. And nobody can say anything to you. There's no recourse to be held against you. This is what ownership is about. And again, more ownership equals more power. This is what I mean when I say starting in the mirror and ending in the mirror. Now, all of that said, to help you all understand the philosophy that one of the baseline philosophies that we work from over here. What does this have to do with the election? As I said, vote for yourself. That's who you're voting for. You are voting for you. And the way you vote for yourself is by taking full ownership and responsibility over your circumstance, regardless of who is running the government, whether you think it's the president, which usually is not, that you think is the deep state, or you think it's some unknown people who we don't even know who are basically moving the puppet strings, whoever you think is running it, doesn't matter, because who's running your life? It ain't them. It's not the Democrats. It's not the Republicans. It's not Congress. It's not the Senate. It's not the mayor. It's not the president. It's you. You're the one who's running your life. And here's the saying that you should keep in mind, all right, regardless of how much you are invested in politics. What's happening in your house is more important than what's happening in the White House. What's happening in your house is more important than what's happening in the White House. You have much more control over your house than you have over the White House. So focus on what you actually can control. Here's a statistic that I'm gonna help you all understand. This is not it's a metaphorical statistic, but you'll understand it when I give it to you. 99% of life is outside of your direct control. 99% of your life is outside of your direct control. You see the sun coming through right now, hitting me in the face, which it feels good right now. It's giving me really good lighting over here on all these platforms, a little bit of shadow over there. But I don't control whether it's sunny. I don't control if it rains. I don't control if it's going to be 80 degrees, 70 degrees, 60 degrees. I have no control over that. I don't control what other people do. When I go outside and take my son for a walk today, I have no control over what the other people who I walk past on the street are going to do. Most of the time they do nothing, but if somebody decides to do something and be crazy, do I actually control whether or not they take that action? No, I can control my response, but I can't control what they actually decide to do. I have very little control over those things. I don't control, I live in a high-rise building. I don't control what my neighbor upstairs is going to do, or downstairs, or to the left, or to the right. I have no control over what other people are doing. And if you really think about it, you will realize that 99% of your life is completely out of your control. I'm going to eat lunch today from food, and the food that I'm going to eat, I did not grow it in my garden. I only have a garden. I don't grow food. I didn't cook it myself. I have no idea who the person is who prepared it. I don't know if they washed their hands. I don't know if they use clean utensils. I don't know if it's poison in the food, but I'm going to eat it. I have no control over it. And if you think about this, I'm giving you examples here, and some of them you may consider to be extreme. But if you really think about it, you realize 99% of your life, you don't really have control. People like to think they're in control, but you really don't control 99% of things that are occurring around you. You don't control. I didn't stitch the fabric of these clothes that I'm wearing. I did put the shelf together. Actually, I did, but it came in pieces. I had to assemble it. Who knows if they gave me the right instructions or not? I don't control a whole lot of things. And here's the point. I told you 99%. So what's the other 1%? The 1% is what you control. You control 1% of what happens in your life. And that seems very small. Seems like such a small amount. And some of you may be thinking, some people may think when they hear something like that, man, I only control 1% of what happens in life. I might as well not do anything. And this is what a lot of people do. A lot of people live their lives as if they believe that. They may not have ever heard these percentages. Many people live their lives in this frame of, I don't control 99% of what happens. So since my control is only 1%, that's so little, I might as well not do anything. And a lot of people have this defeatist mentality. But here's what I want you to understand. Here's the secret. That the more responsibility and ownership you take over that 1%, the more you will have the power to influence the 99%. Not control the 99%. You can't dictate it, but you can start to influence it. For example, have you ever known a person, or maybe you already know a person, who seems to just be able to make things happen in ways that they just seem to have a certain level of power and influence to where they can just make things happen, even though you're looking at them, you're like, this person's a regular human just like me. But how do they have this power, this control? They just seem to be able to alter situations to their liking. They can, again, I keep using the same phrase. They just can make stuff happen. And you're like, how is this person able to do this? How are they so powerful? What do they have that I don't have? And I'm telling you the answer right now. The answer is they have taken more ownership over their 1% that you have taken over your 1%. Every person you know has 1% control over what happens in life. And the people who take more control, these are the people who have power, influence, control. I mean, on social media, what do we call them? Influencers. What is an influencer? An influencer on the internet, let's just say, is a person who can put a message out there or put an ad out there or a post or whatever. And what does it do? It influences other people to do something. All right. Isn't that what an influencer is? Some of you listening to this are influencers. All right. That's what an influencer is. Now, if let's say you're an influencer, right? And you make some posts because some company pays you to make a post about a new perfume that came out or a new car. And you post it, and then some of your fans, they go and buy the perfume or they go buy the car. Now, can you make them go buy it? No. Can you make them pull out their wallet and purchase it? No. Can you make them click on the link? No, you can't make them do anything. But because you have influence, i.e. power, over the way people think and the way they look at things, and this is what an influencer is, you have influence over the way people think and how they look at stuff. Now, you appear to be moving them to take action. You're not really moving them to take action. You're just influencing their action. They still have to choose to do it. But because they've decided that they listen to you and they believe what you say, they will do the things that you're suggesting that they do. That's how power works. Power does not really mean you can make anybody do anything. You can't make anyone do anything that they don't want to do. But you can influence them based on how much power you've taken over your own situation. Nobody can make you do anything. I told y'all, was it here? I wasn't here. I was doing a sales training yesterday, but I'll tell this story. When I was in college, I got a citation, like for running a stop sign. And I had a ticket for like $180, and then I didn't have any money. So I got on a payment plan. It's like pay $50 a month for like a month or for 4 months, something like that. And I didn't even make the payment. And then I got a letter in the mail that said, hey, you failed to make payments. If you don't make a payment within the next 72 hours, we're going to issue a warrant for your arrest. Now, were they going to send like the FBI to my house to come get me over a $200 parking ticket? No, but the letter was enough to influence me to go make the first payment, which is exactly what I did. See, the letter didn't make me make a payment. What the letter did was influence me to make a payment. And it moved me to action that I otherwise hadn't been able to move myself to. And I'm giving you all this to help you all understand that 1% that you have control over, that little tiny 1%, can help influence the 99%. But you got to take full control of the 1% first. There's an order of operations here. So it's not like the 99% is going to start working in your favor and then you take ownership of the 1%. No. That's backwards. The way it works is you take full ownership of your 1%, and the more of it you assume, the more of the 99% you start to feel like you're dictating it. You feel like you're kind of moving everything around. I remember Kobe Bryant when he was still playing. I can't remember which game it was. I think it was the game where he scored like 62 points in 3 quarters. Those of you who are basketball fans remember that. They're playing against the Dallas Mavericks. I think it was this game, but it might have been a different game. It doesn't matter. But after the game, someone asked him, they said, Kobe, how does it feel out there when you're just so on fire and you're scoring all these points and you're making it look easy, et cetera, et cetera? And mind you, he's playing in the NBA. He's the best basketball players in the world. And he said, I feel like Geppetto. And Geppetto, I guess, is some TV character who controls puppets. He's like, I feel like I'm Geppetto. I'm just moving everybody around the way that I want to move them around. He said that right after the game when he had scored all these points. And I'm sharing that example to help you understand what Kobe was expressing is the exact thing I'm trying to help you get, is that because he took so much ownership over his 1%, i.e. working on his game and having skills and being in great shape, et cetera, because he did all that background work to take ownership over his 1%, when he got out there against these other players, mind you, on a basketball court is one person, Kobe, and there's 9 other guys on the court. You don't know exactly what they're going to do. You don't control them, especially the guys on the other team. But he felt like he was moving them around like checker pieces and pieces on the chessboard, like a puppet master. Why? Because he had taken so much control over his own 1%. So that's why he felt like that. And the more control he took, the more power he felt like he had over everything else that was happening. So he was almost like dictating the game while it was happening. Any of you who plays a sport, and actually you can apply this to other things as well, but let's just use sports. You may have heard or maybe even felt the experience of feeling like the game has slowed down for you. You feel like everything is happening in slow motion, even though it's happening at full speed. And that's simply because you've taken so much ownership over your situation that it almost feels like you're dictating what everybody else does. Also, speaking of Kobe, I saw this. It was a clip I saw the other day when he had scored the 81 points. Most of your basketball fans remember he scored 81 points against the Raptors in, I believe, 2006. And one of the things that he said about that game was, I just felt completely in control. I felt my jump shot was super sharp. My footwork was super sharp. My way of seeing the game was super sharp. I know I had done all the work in the off season. I had done a whole bunch of conditioning. I felt like I could run all day. And I just felt like I was completely in control of everything that was happening on the basketball court. That's the kind of feeling that you get. You don't have to be an athlete at all when you've taken full ownership over your 1%. All right, that's the reason why we call this work on your game. The more of that 1% you take ownership of, the key word in that phrase is your, Y-O-U-R, your game. Not the president's game, not the politician's game, not the government's game, your game. When you take full ownership over your game, everybody else's game does not have nearly as much impact, positively or negatively, on your situation. The more you own your stuff, the more everything else seems to kind of work in your favor no matter what it is. Give you another example. 50 Cent, who is, all you know who 50 Cent is, the rapper. He wrote a book with Robert Greene called The 50th Law. And one of the things that 50 said in that book, and the book is really about mastering fear. And that's what Robert Greene decided was the theme of what made 50 Cent, is that he mastered fear. And one of the things that 50 Cent said is that anything that happens to me, I find a way to make it work in my favor, which means there's nothing you can do that can actually hurt me, because anything you do to even try to hurt me, I'm going to make it actually help me. That is exactly what I mean here. I call that mental alchemy. So it's basically you're taking these elements from the outside and you're alchemizing them, which basically you're taking these elements through a process and you're turning it into whatever you want. And that's a mental thing that anybody can adapt that mindset. You have to condition yourself for this mindset. Anybody can have this mentality. But the first step is you got to choose. First step is you must make the decision that this is the mindset that you're going to operate with. And these are the outcomes that you're going to achieve. Understanding achievement, folks, is not you achieve the thing first, then you do the work, and then you get the mindset. That's how most people operate, which is an incorrect formula. You're doing it backwards. The way things actually work in life is that you assume the mindset first, then you do the stuff, and then you get the outcome. Most people try to do it backwards, which is why it doesn't work. So voting for yourself, coming back to my point here, means taking full ownership and responsibility. Have I said that often enough? Everybody got it? Okay. When you put too much emotional buy-in into what politician wins or what the government is doing or how your taxes are going to go or what laws and rules got passed, I'm not saying that they don't matter. But when you put too much emotional buy-in into that stuff, what you're doing is giving up your power, which means you're giving up your influence over your own situation. I would suggest you not get into that situation. All right, there are some people out there who don't really have power over their own circumstance and over their own lives. And what the government does plays a huge role in what they either can do or cannot do. Those people are known as homeless, destitute, poor, and they end up on government assistance like welfare and things like that. All right, you don't want to be in that situation. You don't want to be in a situation where whatever the government does has a huge effect on you. You want whatever the government does to have a small effect on you. So do you hear, for example, Vice President Harris, she often uses this. She says, well, Donald Trump is known as being this rich billionaire guy, right? Whether you think he actually is a billionaire or not, you talk about how many bankruptcies he had, is not the point. Harris keeps bringing up the point that Donald Trump just wants to work for the rich people, right? He's going to give rich people these tax cuts. He's going to give billionaires these tax cuts. How is that going to help the everyday person? All right. I'm bringing that up to say this. Think about it. Let's just say that she's telling the truth. All right. Here's the thing that all of you should understand. A person who is a billionaire, who's a billionaire, let's say the Microsoft guy, Bill Gates, or Elon Musk, or Jeff Bezos. All right. Do they care what the government does? Yes. And do they do things to try to influence the government? Yes. They use their money. Thing about those people that Kamala keeps bringing up, the Democrats tend to do that. They tend to have this frame that the Republicans just work for the rich people and the Democrats are for every person. Whether you agree with that or not, I don't believe that to be true, but it's a framing that they've been using for decades. And I'll give you a story about that in one moment. A billionaire, it doesn't really matter who wins the election. Why? Because there's nothing that the government can do that's going to affect their status. And a billionaire has power. They have financial power, right? And usually to get to that level of financial power, they had to do some stuff and they had to be a certain type of person. In order to get to that level, you got to be a certain type of individual. You do certain things, you get to a certain outcome in that order: be, do, and have. And because of this power and status that they have, yes, they want to affect what the government does, but in the big picture, it doesn't really matter what the government does, because the government can't really stop them from doing what they want to do. And that's the position that you want to be in. I'm not saying you need to become a billionaire. What I'm saying is you want to put yourself mentally into a space that whatever the government does, maybe I like it, maybe I don't, but it's not going to stop my flow from me doing what I want to do in my own life based on my own actions. And when it comes to that, Republicans are for the rich people. I remember asking my mom back when I was a child. This is like, I probably wasn't even 10 years old. And we had those of you who grew up like I did, we would eat dinner in the kitchen as a family. And there was a TV in the kitchen, and it would be on the news, because back then there was only a few channels. And they were talking Democrats, Republicans. And I understood it enough to ask my mom, because I knew my parents voted every election. They would go vote. And I said, so are we, and I figured my mom and dad voted similarly. So I asked my mom, I said, are we Democrats or Republicans? And my mom said Democrats. And I said, why are we Democrats? And my mom thought about it for a moment. She had to come up with a good answer, because, and being an adult now, I know she probably didn't have an answer. She probably just been taught her whole life that black people are supposed to vote Democrat, so she just did it. That's probably the real answer, but she didn't say that. She said, because Republicans only work for the rich people. That was her answer. So that told me a couple things. Later on, I realized that she didn't really have a serious answer for it. She was just conditioned to think a certain way, but also told me that we weren't rich, because if we were rich, that means we would be voting Republican, right? So I knew we weren't rich, but it's a funny story that I tell to certain audiences. Can't say that at a corporate gig, but I do tell people that anecdote every now and then. Point is here, folks, I'm spending a lot of time on this point, but you don't want to give up your own power to influence your situation. I think I've pushed this point hard enough, at least today, that you all understand this. But if you keep following my material, or you watch the little clips that we put out on social media, or my full content we put on social media, you notice that I come back to this point right here over and over and over and over again. This is the reason why I spent 25 minutes on it here today. This is the foundation of what I'm about, is the foundation of what our business is about. We start with the person in the mirror, and we end with the person in the mirror. Even if the circumstance, the middle part, has to do with a whole bunch of other people out there, we always start and end at the same spot. Why? Because this is the one thing we can control. So when I was talking to that business owner, and he was having issues with his staff, yes, the staff may suck. Maybe they do suck. Maybe they're terrible. But you hired them. All right, they're your staff. How'd they become part of your staff? You hired them. All right, somehow, some way, you let them in the room. So we still got to come back to the person who let them come in the first place. Everybody understand what I'm saying here? And this is what we call self-accountability. And not everybody wants to sign up for self-accountability. So I understand the trade-off that I'm making when I even talk about topics like this, is that I'm not talking to everybody. I'm talking to certain people who are serious about taking yourself to the highest level you can take yourself to. And that's based on how much ownership you're willing to take over yourself and your own situation. As soon as you start giving ownership to other people, you give up control and you give up power. I'm looking for the people who want to take full control and want to take full power and take full accountability, which, again, I understand that ain't everybody. Okay, so let's move on to point number 3, because I could talk about this all day. Point number 3, we're talking here today about who to vote for in the 2024 election. In case any of you came in the middle, the answer is you're voting for yourself. I just spent 30 minutes explaining to you what I meant by that. So if you missed it, go watch the replay. Number 3, if you are smart, you will find a way to benefit from any outcome. I just gave you an example of this. 50 Cent in the book, The 50th Ball. He said, anything that happens to me, I'll find a way to make it work in my favor. And any of you, you know the highlights of 50 Cent's story. He was a guy from the streets, didn't have parents around, he was in the streets doing street stuff, was about to start his rap career, got shot 9 times, came back from that, started his career, and now here we are. And I think he has credibility in saying something like that. I got shot 9 times, and here I am. I became a successful entertainer. All right, it's fair enough. All right, he can say that. Anybody can do this, though. You don't have to get shot in order to adopt this mindset. Hopefully you don't. Man, most people get shot, don't survive to tell a story and make an album about it. The point being, you need to develop the mindset that anything that happens, I'm going to find a way to make it work in my favor. So if you hate the Democrats and the Democrat wins, you should still find a way to make it work in your favor, and vice versa. You hate the Republicans and Trump wins, you should still find a way to make it work in your favor. And here's the bottom line. Here's what I'll tell all of you is your mandate leading up to this election. Your mandate is that over the next 4 years, between January 2025, when the new whoever wins gets sworn in, and the election of 2028, where we'll do all of this all over again, you're mandated to be doing better over the next 4 years, regardless of who wins. And this is what I tell people when people ask me who I'm going to vote for. And I say I'm voting for myself. And they say, what do you mean by that? And this is my answer. What I just told you, this is the answer. Over the next 4 years, between now and 2028, when the next election comes up, and whether that's two new candidates, if Trump wins, it'll be two new candidates because he already had 2 terms, or it's Harris trying to run again and against whoever comes up, whatever the situation, you are responsible for becoming more successful over the next 4 years, regardless of who wins this election. Because as I just told you, or I told you earlier today, what's happening in your house is more important than what happens in the White House. Your house is more important than the White House. You have a lot more control over your house than you have over the White House. So your responsibility is to step your game up, step your performance up, step up your accountability, your personal responsibility, and take more ownership over that 1% that you have control over the next 4 years, regardless of who wins the election, because you don't control who wins the election. You have a say, that's called voting, but you don't have control. There's a difference. And you need to understand, what does the serenity prayer say, right? Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So here I'm helping you with the wisdom to know the difference. And as a matter of fact, actually not helping you with I'm reminding you. I'm not really telling you something that you don't know. I'm just reminding you of something that you do know. And one of the challenges that I find in my work as a coach, consultant, speaker is that a lot of people know a lot of stuff, but we are not engaging the stuff that we know. So we need to be reminded. We need to be reminded of the things that we know. So I don't think it's news to any of you that you don't control what happens in the government and the White House. And I don't think it's news to any of you that you have much more control over what you do and what happens in your own house. That's not news to anybody. That's not a brand new idea to any of you, but many of you tend to not think about that on a conscious and intentional level on a daily basis, which is why I'm here to remind you of it. So think about the word remind. Remind. I'm putting it on your mind again. Remind. And think about this. When you were in kindergarten, how many times did you say the ABCs? All right. You said that a million times. You sang that ABC song, right? To the point that any of you could sing it. I could wake you up out of your sleep at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, sing the ABC song. You know it. All right. Without having to think about it. You don't need to go Google it or pull the video up on YouTube as a backing track. You know it by heart. Why? Because you sang it a million times to the point that you can't forget it. And here's the thing. And one of the reasons why, if you follow my material long enough, you will hear me bringing up certain principles and certain points over and over and over and over again. And sometimes when I'm doing live streams, people will be like, yo, you keep repeating yourself. That's not by accident. I'm repeating myself on purpose. Because human beings have hard heads. All right. The bones up here in the skull, these are some of the hardest bones that we have in the human body. You know why they're so hard? Because they got to protect our brains. So this is why in boxing, and if you know anything about combat sports, any kind of combat sport, they say if you get hit in your head, you want to get hit like right here, because this bone right here is like the hardest bone in the head. You don't want to get hit down here. These bones are a little bit softer, like the jaw bones and the chin, they're soft. That's why if somebody gets hit in the chin, they get knocked out. But they get hit right here, you could break your own hand if you punch somebody right here in their forehead. So any of you ever need to punch somebody in the face, punch them down here near the mouth. Don't punch them up here. You'll hurt yourself more than you hurt them. Point being, we got hard heads. All right, that's a metaphor, which means we got to hear the same thing over and over and over again before we get it. How many of you ever had somebody tell you something one time, you didn't do it, you knew you needed to do it, you didn't do nothing, and then you had to hear it like 10 times, and the 10th time you finally took action? Of course. How many of you ever told somebody something 10 times? They didn't listen the first 9 times, but then the 10th time they finally did something. Of course. All of us. We are all guilty of this. This is why anytime you hear me repeating myself, don't get annoyed. You should be happy. All right. Thank you for telling me that again, because I didn't listen the last time you said it, Dre, but I heard it this time. Now I'm going to actually do something. How many of you got a list of things you know you need to do? You've been telling yourself you need to do them for the last 3 months, and here you are still not doing it. Exactly. Okay. So now you know why I repeat myself. All right, so in case you didn't know, I know what I'm doing here. I've been doing this for a while. Okay. And I talk to a lot of different people from different walks of life, male, female, young, old, corporate, business owners, entrepreneurs, influencers, content creators, students, athletes, again, from Democrats, Republicans. We got all different types of people in my world. All right, why? Because the bottom line and what we do is not partisan. It's not on any side of any political aisle. I don't really give a damn about what's happening in politics. I talk about it because it gets people's attention, and I am in the attention business on some level. At the same time, I'm in the game business, but I got to get your attention to give you the game. See, if I don't get your attention first, I can't give you the game. I've been talking about things like this, by the way, for the last 15 years. How many of you heard of me sometime in the last, 30 days, 6 months? Okay, so because I'm talking about certain things, I got your attention. Now I can give you the game. So you got to understand how these things work. Moving on to point number 4. Now, this is my last point, and I'm going to take questions and comments at the end. Number 4. We're talking who to vote for in the 2024 election. Number 4, regardless of who wins, I already told you this part, you're responsible for your success. All right, everybody got that point, right? Regardless of who wins the election, even if they take another 2 months again, like they did last time, to tell us who actually won and they're going to court and all those things, no matter what happens, you are responsible for being more successful over the next 4 years than you are right now. I don't care who wins the election. I don't care if the whole government gets overthrown. You are responsible for being more successful over the next 4 years than you are today. That is your responsibility. I don't want to hear in 2028, none of you should be showing up talking about, well, I was going to be more successful, but the Democrat won, so I just gave up. Or I was going to be more successful, but Trump won, so I was so mad that he won that I just did nothing. Nonsense. That's unacceptable. That's unacceptable. All right. You are responsible for your success moving forward, regardless of who you voted for, regardless of whether you voted, you didn't even vote at all. Maybe you're not even eligible to vote, whatever the reason, you are responsible for becoming more successful. Okay. That's why this brand is called Work on Your Game, not their game, not his game, not her game, your game. All right. You are responsible for your game. Okay. America is the land of opportunity and upward mobility. I think we all can agree to that. This is the reason why, regardless of how you feel about immigration, the reason why so many people keep coming here as opposed to all the other countries in the world. Everybody comes here. Why? Because we have so much opportunity and upward mobility. This is one of the few countries in the world where you could be born as a poor nobody and no one around you has any influence, any power, any money, and you can become a person of influence, power, and money within the span of one lifetime. I don't know how many of you have lived in other countries or know people from other countries. There are other countries in the world. You cannot do that. It's not set up for you to even be able to do that in many countries. If you're born a nobody, you die a nobody. And if you're born to somebody, you die as somebody regardless of what you do. In America, you can go from being a somebody to a nobody. And you go from being a nobody to a somebody. This country has opportunities that no other country has. That's why everybody wants to come here. And it doesn't mean we should let everybody in because we have laws. All right? The reason that we have a country is because there's a border that says, okay, if you cross this line, you're in the country. You cross that line, you're out of the country. We need to enforce those. And allegedly, both candidates say that that's what they want to do. Allegedly, I've already talked about that in my other lives. Point being, America is a land of opportunity and upward mobility, which means none of you is it acceptable for you to not take advantage of that opportunity and create upward mobility for yourself because the tools are all available. Even 30, 40 years ago, for those of you who are old enough to remember, and if you're not, your parents can verify, a lot of things that we can do today, you couldn't just do with a click of a button 30, 40 years ago. Like right now, I'm putting my message out to, let's see if TikTok will tell me. Right now, it says TikTok says total 1.4 million people have seen some of the stream I'm doing right now. And I'm live on like 7 different platforms. I'm looking at TikTok. 30 years ago, I couldn't just push a button and get my message out to a couple thousand people. Did I say million? I meant to say thousand. I couldn't get my message out to a couple thousand people for free. And then it doesn't literally cost me any money to do this. Literally, it just costs me time. I couldn't do that 30 years ago. You couldn't just do that. You couldn't start a business. 30 years ago, you could not start a business from your couch with no money whatsoever and be profitable by the end of the day. Any of you could do that right now. You can start I meant to say thousand. Did I say million? I meant to say thousand. I wish I had 1.4 million people see me. Maybe if I keep doing this, I keep talking about politics, maybe I'll get there. The point being, folks, is that back then you couldn't just write a book and put it on Amazon and have the book available for sale tomorrow morning. You couldn't do that 30 years ago, even in America. You couldn't have your own radio show. We call them podcasts now. Back then, you had to actually get with a radio company and somebody had to sign you to a contract. Nowadays, you can start a podcast from your phone. You can literally record it on your phone, push a couple buttons, and boom, you got a podcast. All right, now you can have a TV show through YouTube. How much money does any of this stuff cost? Nothing. It costs time and energy, but no money required. So all the opportunities we all have available to ourselves today for free, and you don't have to know anybody. You ain't got to talk to nobody. All you got to have is a phone. All you got a phone because you're all listening to me right now, and you just need internet connection. All of you got that because you're listening to me right now. You have no excuses. Doesn't mean everything's going to work out easily for you. It doesn't mean everything's just going to be a yellow brick road of success. Everybody goes through challenges. The point is, the mindset that I want you to adopt is that you have more opportunity for upward mobility here and now than anyone has ever had in the history of civilization. There is no country in the world with more opportunity and upward mobility than America. And there has been no point in America in which you had as much opportunity to advance as you have right now today. The technology we have available, the ease of access. And again, you can be a complete nobody and go to a somebody. Any of you who's from another country, all right, please verify this in the comments. You can't just do that in the country that some of you come from, in the country that some of you may know people from. You can't just become a somebody in 50 years. You can't. It doesn't matter what you do. It's set up that you can't do it. Here, you can do it. So you should be happy that whatever government we have, you at least have the opportunity to keep doing what you want to do. No excuses here. So let me recap my points. I'm going to take questions, then we'll wrap this up. So we're talking here today, who to vote for and why. First point is your preferred candidate may not win. That does not give you an excuse to curl up in a ball and die and quit. Number two, the person you're going to vote for is yourself. You are voting for you. Vote for whatever candidate you want, support whoever you want, knock on doors, make phone calls. Point is, you're taking full ownership and responsibility of your situation, which means you have full power. That's what it means. The more ownership and responsibility you take of anything in life, the more power you have over it. So if you want to have ownership and responsibility of your health, you want to have power over your health, then take more ownership and responsibility for your health. You want to have more power over your business, take more ownership and responsibility of the business. Anything you want to have more power and influence over, take more ownership and more responsibility, and all of a sudden you have the power. Now, power does not mean everything's going to work. Power means you are at fault the same way that you are responsible. That means you get the blame if it fails, and you get all the celebration if it wins. That's the trade-off, and you cannot avoid that trade-off. That's part of the game. Number three, if you're smart, you're going to find a way to benefit from whatever outcome occurs. I already told you how to do that. And number four, regardless of who wins, you're responsible for your future success. Over the next 4 years, you should become a more successful person, regardless of if the Democrat wins or the Republican wins or nobody wins or whoever. Doesn't even matter. All right, if I become president, you are still responsible for being more successful. Now, remember, I'll give you one last quote here when we end. I believe it was 1961. A man by the name of Jonathan Fitzgerald Kennedy. He was being sworn in for the president's space after he had won the previous election. He said in that speech, that inauguration speech, probably the most famous quote ever said in an inauguration speech. All of you have heard it before. Maybe you didn't know it came from Kennedy. He said, "Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country." That's a great ending point that I want to put here today. I'm going to take questions and comments in a second. It is not about what the government is going to do for you. It's about what you can do to step yourself forward, and that will influence and empower other people to step their games up. All right, that's what I'm about. That's what Work on Your Game's about, and that's why we are here. So now let me take questions. I'm going to start over on YouTube. You got a question or comment, put it in the comment section right now. Mr. O on YouTube said, class over party, change your class and decrease the impact of the election. Yes, exactly. Higher class you are at, the higher socioeconomic class you are at, the less it matters what the government does. That's a simple reality. And I know some people say, well, it's not fair that you got these people who are up here and they control 50% of the income, et cetera, et cetera. My answer to that is life ain't fair. You should work on how do you get closer to that, being in that group. Maybe you won't become a billionaire, but you can get closer. You can become more of an heir than you are now. So if you're a 100-aire, become a 1,000-aire. You're a 1,000-aire, become a six-figure 1,000-aire. You're a six-figure 1,000-aire, become a millionaire. You're a millionaire, try to become a billionaire. Try to move yourself forward. There's plenty of opportunity to do it. Doesn't mean you'll succeed, but at least you can try. As they say, aim for the moon, you land amongst the stars. Unbiased Sports says accountability plus responsibility plus ownership equals power. Yes, that is the 4-step, or the formula rather. It's not even a 4-step. That's the formula to make it happen. Let me see what we got over on. Shout out to people watching on Facebook. We're slowly building up the Facebook. I had a Facebook page with 20,000 likes and it got hacked. And any of you ever get a Facebook page hacked is pretty much over. You got to start over. So I'm starting over and we're slowly building that Facebook page back up. So shout out to everybody watching me on Facebook or watching the replays on Facebook. Let me see what we got over on Instagram. Araceli, MIA style. Good morning. Someone said, hopefully it's a fair election. Yeah, we do want it to be a fair election, but fair is a relative term. Fair is determined by who's in charge. It's kind of like if you're a parent and you got a kid who's 5 years old, you decide what's fair. All right, fair is not a collective bargaining conversation between you and your 5-year-old. You decide what's fair and what's not fair. So fair is we got to be careful with that term, but I get what you're saying. Crespo Realty says, thank you for reminding me. I appreciate you. I appreciate you as well. Thank you for jumping in. Tara, yeah, I wish it was 1 million. I meant to say 1,000, but you could tell everybody that was 1 million. Crespo said, do you know which platforms are best to sell? You mean for selling things on, like you have something to sell, which platform to use to sell? That is highly situational based on what you're selling, who you're selling it to, and how you want to sell it. So those are 3 questions you got to ask. What are you selling? Who are you selling it to? And how do you want to sell it? Meaning, are you selling like somebody clicks a link and buys it? Are you selling by somebody gets on the phone with you? Are you selling by you go meet them in person? How do you sell? What are you selling? And who are your customers? So when you can answer those 3 questions, then I can answer your question. So Crespo, send me a DM. I can help you out with that though. All right, let's see what we got over on TikTok. So it's the same thing that happened yesterday on TikTok. Now I'm trying to scroll through and it's not letting me scroll through the comments. So I'm gonna go over to this side. So I can only see the comments that are coming up right now. So if you left a comment and I didn't answer it earlier in the stream, please leave the comment now so I can respond to it. I don't know why TikTok is doing this. Maybe this is what happens when you get too many comments. I guess that's a good problem. So I guess that's good. Shout out to people on TikTok engaging. So Chris said, he repeats himself. Why are you not listening? It's how we know you're voting for Harris. Rory said, what are your thoughts on David Goggins? So I've had like 3 people at different points in the last couple of years see me and they said, oh, I thought you were David Goggins. So my first thought on David Goggins is I look a lot better than David Goggins. So please do not tell me that you thought I was David Goggins. That's disrespectful to me. I'm joking, but David Goggins, he's got good stuff. I'm not really into his type of motivation personally. I'm not into that type of motivation, the kind of run through a brick wall type of guy. I respect what he does, and I know he has a whole lot of fans. So shout out to him for that. And I know he does like those long marathon races, but if we ran a 10K, I'd probably beat him. I wouldn't beat him in an ultra marathon because I'm not getting into it, but I could beat him in a 10K. And never tell me I look like David Goggins. I go a lot better than David Goggins. Shout out to David Goggins. Again, that's a tongue-in-cheek joke, so don't go running over there saying, Dre said, y'all get it. Janina said, did I say Jonathan? Jonathan who? Who are you talking about? Robin said, this is the first time I've seen you. You have my attention. I needed to hear this morning. Exactly. That's why you're here. Right on time. Janina said, the policies of the government make that easier or harder, though. You are 100% correct. That's right. And it's still your responsibility. That's the whole point. Let's see. Stefan said, who are you voting for, Dre? Myself. I just told you that. Were you listening? I'm voting for myself. That's what I'm voting for. I'm trying to scroll through the comments on TikTok, and if anybody knows anyone at TikTok who can help me out with this, for some reason, they don't let me scroll through the comments. I used to be able to scroll through the comments, but now they changed this situation to where I can't scroll through the comments. So let me see. Maybe I could find it in a different way. So, I got to add a lead form on here. Let me see, because there was a way that I could comment. Let me see. Comments. So here's comments. No, they still won't let me scroll through the comments. I don't know what happened here on TikTok. They have thrown this thing off to where I can't get through the comment. I can't scroll back through the comments and see what people said earlier, which I like to start from the beginning. Doesn't mean I can respond to every single thing. Thousands. Lori said the comments are not moving on my side. So can any of you scroll through the comments? Because I can't scroll through the comments. I think most of the time you should be able to scroll through the comments, and maybe some of y'all can. I cannot even scroll through the comments on TikTok. I don't know why this is happening. It might be because I have this filter on. Might be because I put a filter on here yesterday by accident and I didn't. So Nancy said she can. Thousand Glory says, okay, now you say you can. I can't. I still can't scroll through the comments. I don't know why this is happening. Might be because I put a visual filter on here by accident, which it shouldn't be on here. After I'm done, I'll do a test live so I can fix this, because this shouldn't be happening. Because now I can't go through and see what you all said earlier in the stream, and I know I missed a whole bunch of commentary because of this. So actually now it's working. It was working for 1 second, then it stopped working. Let me see. Let me try one more time. Okay, now it's working. All right, now I got it. I think. 1 second. Let me try that one more time. So those of y'all who are watching on TikTok, I'm trying to scroll through the comments. We are trying to solve this technical difficulty issue of scrolling through the comments. That's our problem right now. Scrolling through the comments problem. So I see some people said 1 million times. And Maggie said, I love your dedication to personal accountability. Folks just sit back and play the victim. Yes. So we all got to watch ourselves for that, because it's easy to fall into that trap when we are not staying conscious and aware of these things. So I'm able to scroll through some, but every time I try to scroll like this, it keeps doing the same thing, and it's changing the brightness filter, which is not what I'm trying to do. So let's try this one more time. All right, I scrolled a little bit more. All right, so let's see if we could get this far. Someone said, don't vote for the party against Christmas. Which party is that? Annabis said, accountability takes work, and not a lot of people want to do the work. Yes, that's true. That's just a truism about humanity, period. Brian said, MAGA equals hate and lies. That's what some say. And I talked about that in one of the other lives I did. People have been indoctrinated to believe that, and people can't have their minds changed once they've made them up. Now, I don't know if you really believe that or you're just saying it, but fine. Sarah said, if you support Trump, you're no genius. Another case in point. Good Times, Funny Stuff said, nobody's going against Christmas. People claiming to be Christians are against everyone else. All right, so yeah, I see. All y'all have strong opinions, we see. Cindy said, everything you're saying makes sense, but I see people making life decisions with no accountability or care. Well, here's the thing, Cindy, they have a right to do that. Here's the beautiful thing about humanity is people could do whatever they want to do. So if people want to be dumb or do something that hurts them, they are allowed to. And I'd rather preach to the choir. Preaching to the choir means talk to people who are already leaning in a direction that you want to go, rather than trying to maybe change the way that they think, because that's a uphill battle that I don't want to climb up that hill. Someone said, let's vote for competency. Harris is the choice. Well, your vote, your choice. That's my answer to anybody saying anything about either side. CW said, Kamala isn't going to do anything more than Biden. Well, one thing I'll say about that is she's been asked in multiple interviews, what are you going to do different from Biden? And she hasn't really answered the question. I don't know why she's not answering the question. She should answer it, but she isn't. I don't know why. Someone said, Kamala can't talk to other leaders and can't answer a question of ours. We'll see. Well, if she wins, we'll see. Someone said, I like Trump because he wears more makeup than Kamala. LOL. Fui said, love the clean suits. Thank you. We like to keep them clean. We got to keep them clean. It's important that we keep them clean. All right. I still can't really scroll through the way that I want to. So this is too cumbersome. So we're going to wrap this up in a minute, folks. I will tell you all, workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's where I do all of my coaching. I told you this is what we do for a living. This is my full-time business, Work on Your Game University. That's what we do. Speaking, coaching, consulting. We have mastermind programs. We got group programs. Of course, we got books. We have courses, all of those things. So if any of that stuff is kind of up your alley, kind of thing that you're looking for, and you want to see, this is what's happening when I try to scroll. This brightness thing. All right. You want to step your game up and you want to start doing it now and have some momentum going into the new year, 2025, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. The link is in my bio on whatever application you are watching me on right now. It's just workonyourgameuniversity.com. You can see feedback of people we are currently working with and have worked with in the past. And you can schedule a time to get on a call with us. You can also jump straight into our group program if you want to do that as well without getting on the call. All those options available. Again, workonyourgameuniversity.com. I can't scroll through the comments the way that I want to, which is annoying me. But let's see. Someone said now it's moving. It was frozen. D. Pity said, you're trying to show all the books you read, but they are backwards. Well, these are my books. These are books that I've written. And they're backwards because the screen is mirrored. Is that a serious comment? I don't think so. Thousands Glory said TikTok's been acting up lately. Okay, so maybe we'll blame it on TikTok. Robin said accountability is so important. Yes, it is. Accountability is everything. Someone said your tie is not tied properly. I think it is. All right. Someone said TikTok is screening your life. That's why it's doing it. I don't know what that means. What does that mean? Lynn said, who wants to listen to you? Well, according to the TikTok stats, this is just on TikTok. According to the TikTok stats, 1.5 thousand people, not million, but thousand. All right. And Andrew said, voting for Trump today. The reading people's things and giving them warnings. Well, I know it's doing that. It does give warnings if you say the wrong word. So I've had that happen a couple of times, but now I know which words not to say. And every now and then I say a word that they give me a warning. Now I know I can't say that. All right. So we're wrapping this one up, everybody. Workonyourgameuniversity.com. I do these lives every Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern. So if you like this one, be back here tomorrow. And I pick the topics every day, so I don't always know what I'm going to talk about. Sometimes it's current events like this. Sometimes it's not. But being that the election's coming up, I'll probably be doing a good amount of current events, at least over the next 2 weeks. But we talk about personal development, professional development, ownership, getting better, growth, business, entrepreneurship, etc., which we dabbled in here today. But outside of current events, that's what we talk about on a more consistent basis. Everybody, I'll see you all tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern. Topic TBD, to be determined. Everybody have a great day. Thank you, Crespo. Thank you, Tara. Good to see you all here over on Instagram. All right, we out of here. What's going on, Chad? Gentlemen, appreciate you as well over on YouTube.